The 1950s was a great time to be a sci-fi fan. The war had just ended, technology was seeing an unprecedented boom, and the world was gripped by paranoia regarding nuclear war. This looming uncertainty regarding technological development led to a boom in the production of sci-fi films, and the decade still holds the record for the most sci-fi films made in a span of 10 years. However, since most of these films were low-budget productions, they have mostly faded out of our memories. Thus, in this marvelous video, we shall bring you the top 10 sci-fi films from the 50s that deserve their due. But before we move on, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. It might just be a click for you, but to us it means a lot. Now let's dive right in. Number 1. The Man from Planet X, 1951. In the 1950s, when the talk of space travel was just entering the mainstream, people were especially concerned about extraterrestrial beings. Of course, this means that the audiences were treated to a bunch of quintessential alien movies. Our first pick, the black and white sci-fi horror film, The Man from Planet X, is one of the most definitive in this genre, and laid the foundation for years to come. This film, directed by Edgar G. Ulmer, revolves around a humanoid alien who crash lands on an isolated Scottish moor, and is encountered by a group of scientists, deemed by many as the first gothic sci-film. This low-budget quickie makes excellent use of fog and mist to shroud the alien in mystery. Throughout the film, we learn that the lone alien is but a scout for an invasive alien species escaping from their dying world. The film is clearly influenced by the expressionist films of the Weimar area, especially Fritz Lang's Metropolis. Despite the dated effects and costumes, the themes embedded in this film are still relevant. Through its ensemble of characters, we get different perspectives on how humans would react to such an otherworldly presence. The film was found to be extremely terrifying by audiences at the time of its release, and it managed to earn $1.2 million on a $51,000 budget. The film stars Robert Clark, Margaret Field, and William Schallert in the leading roles. The long-lasting influence of this film is exemplified by the fact that when Spielberg was making his own alien film, Close Encounters with the Third Kind, the aliens in the film used the same musical sound to communicate as the alien in The Man from Planet X. Number 2. Rocketship X-M, 1950. Our next entry, the 1950 film Rocketship X-M, holds the distinction of being the first outer space adventure to be produced after the end of World War II. This 78-minute-long trip into space was created by Lippitt Pictures and directed by Kurt Newman, centered around the crew aboard the Rocketship Expedition Moon, RXM. This film's premise is straightforward. We follow along on the voyage of the RXM, the very first expedition to the moon launched by man. The spacecraft begins to malfunction while passing a meteoroid storm, and ends up beyond the moon on Mars. Here they encounter the last remnants of the Martian civilization, which has been destroyed due to an atomic war in the past. For the rest of the film, the stranded crew tries its best to make its way back to Earth, but many more challenges obstruct their path. The film has an interesting ensemble of characters, led by Lloyd Bridges' Colonel Floyd Graham, who pilots the spacecraft. Other notable actors in the film are Osa Masson as Dr. Lisa Van Horn, John Emery as Dr. X-Storm, and Noah Beery as Major William Corrigan, and Hugh O'Brien as Harry Chamberlain. One of the most unique aspects of this production was the evocative soundtrack composed by Ferd Groff. The master musician used a theremin to produce parts of the OST, making Rocketship X-M the first sci-fi film to use electronic music in its score. Though the film is rife with action set pieces and fantastical concepts, it's interesting to see how the threat of atomic war played a part in the storyline. Through the devastated ruins of Mars, the filmmakers have certainly tried to paint a picture of what would happen to Earth in the case of nuclear Armageddon. In 2001, this underrated gem finally received its due recognition when it was nominated for the 1951 Retro Hugo Award for Best Dramatic Presentation. Number 3. Queen of Outer Space, 1958. Set in 1985, this film follows Captain Patterson, played by Eric Fleming, and his crew on a mission to a space station. But before they can make it to their destination, the station is destroyed by an interstellar beam. The resulting explosion knocks the ship into space, and the crew soon finds themselves on Venus, a planet ruled by a cruel queen called Ilana, and her predominantly matriarchal order. The inhabitants of Venus have nearly annihilated all men, only keeping scientists and mathematicians alive. The crew is captured by the Queen, but manages to escape thanks to a courtier named Talia, played by the Hungarian-American actress Zsa Zsa Gabor. Through Talia and her friends, we learn that some of the women have grown tired of life without men and are planning a coup to re-establish the old order. The film is directed by the Three Stooges director Edward Burns and produced by the low-rent studio Allied Artists. Due to a lack of budget, the production was forced to utilize props and costumes from other sci-fi film, but the film's success lies in how it weaves all these elements into a coherent experience. Despite the mildly erotic tone, the film opened to both critical and commercial success, with Gabor's performance garnering praise from all audiences. Number 4. When Worlds Collide, 1951. The end of the world is a frequent occurrence in sci-fi, but the way in which our next pick pulled it off has made it one of the most iconic films in a genre. The approach of a rogue star sends humanity into turmoil, as we learn that the star, Belus, will crash into the Earth in approximately 8 months. Based on a novel of the same name written by Edwin Ballmer and Philip Wiley, this movie is a harrowing and gritty depiction of how humanity will respond in the face of inevitable doom. Throughout the film, everyone from scientists to armed forces pool their resources in order to create arcs that can help them escape. Fortunately for humanity, there's another planet called Zyra that's going to pass close by Earth before Belus arrives. When Worlds Collide stands apart from the rest of the movies about planet-ending threats because of the finality it provides by its end. The Earth is really destroyed, and apart from the few lucky ones who can make it to Zyra, the rest of the population is annihilated. The film was also revolutionary in terms of its staging and special effects, receiving an honorary award for special effects at the 24th Academy Awards. When Worlds Collide stars Richard Dare, Barbara Rush, Peter Hans, and John Hoyt in the prominent roles. Number 5. The Magnetic Monster, 1953. This independent production from 1953 was produced by Ivan Tors and directed by Kurt Siodmak as the first feature in the Office of Scientific Investigation trilogy, spearheaded by Tors. This was director Siodmak's first foray into horror, a genre that he would soon grow dominant, due in no small part to his work in The Magnetic Monster. The film follows two agents from OSI investigating an appliance store, where every item seems to have become magnetized. The investigation led to a scientist, Dr. Howard Denker, who had been researching an artificial radioactive isotope, ceranium. Owing to Denker's experiments, this material doubles in both size and mass every hour. It is determined that at its current growth rate, the sample would be heavy enough to hamper the Earth's rotation in just a couple of weeks. For the rest of the film, our OSI agents are tasked with averting this calamity and have to overcome numerous challenges to save the planet. The Magnetic Monster provides audiences with the threat posed by mindless scientific progress and raise some poignant questions about nuclear research. Despite the dated effects and scientific inaccuracies, the film functions as a pretty effective thriller. The two OSI agents, Dr. Stewart and Dr. Forb, are played by Richard Carlson and King Donovan, respectively. Number 6. Forbidden Planet, 1956. Our next film, the 1956 movie Forbidden Planet, is a milestone of early sci-fi cinema. Produced by MGM and directed by Fred M. Wilcox, this techno-horror masterpiece is cited as the precursor to a lot of sci-fi films we see today. The story is set in the 23rd century and revolves around a starship crew finding themselves on an unfamiliar and dangerous planet. The occupants of the starship C-57D travel to the distant planet Altair 4 in order to investigate the fate of a 20-year-old expedition to the planet. But once they arrive, it becomes clear that there's something strange on planet Altair 4. The last remaining scientist from the last expedition reveals that all his crewmates have been killed, one by a strange planetary force. But Morbius has his own secrets too, which involve an extinct alien species called Krell, and an advanced piece of scientific machinery that seems to give the user reality-altering powers. However, this amazing machine might also be the thing that eventually drove the Krell to extinction. Walter Pidgeon, Anne Francis, Leslie Nielsen, and Warren Stevens played the main characters in the film. The movie received both critical and commercial acclaim upon its release, with audiences especially admiring the highly imaginative gadgets and settings shown in the film. The Forbidden Planet holds a special place in cinema history, as it was the first film to depict sci-fi concepts like light-speed interstellar travel and a robot companion. Not only did the film win the award for Best Visual Effects at the 29th Academy Awards, but it was also inducted into the National Film Registry in 2013. Number 7. The Incredible Shrinking Man, 1957. Compared to our earlier entries, which involved aliens and starships, the plot of 1957's The Incredible Shrinking Man is pretty straightforward. Our protagonist, Scott, played by Grant Williams, discovers that he has been gradually shrinking ever since he had an encounter with some mysterious fog while on vacation. This strange condition causes conflicts between him and his wife, Louise, and their relationship forms the emotional core of this film. The truly horrifying part of this tale is that no cure is ever found. Even his beloved wife eventually leaves him, presuming him to be dead. In the end, Scott just accepts his fate and surrenders to the fact that he will soon shrink to subatomic size. Though the audience response to the film was initially lukewarm, it has since grown to a cult status. Many critics have praised it as a highly terrifying and imaginative affair that stuns audiences with its visual effects. Though these visuals seem dated now, they were genuinely revolutionary at the time, and turned mundane things like house cats into terrifying monsters, when seen from Scott's perspective. Over the years, The Incredible Shrinking Man has won numerous awards, and has even been included in the Criterion Collection. Number 8. Invaders from Mars, 1953. Martians invading Earth is perhaps the oldest trope in sci-fi cinema, but even so, 1953's Invaders from Mars was one of the first to bring it to the big screen. The project was made independently, under director William Cameron Menzies, and starred Jimmy Hunt, Helena Carter, Arthur Franz, Morris Ankrum, Leif Erikson, and Hilary Brooke in the main roles. As the name suggests, the film is centered around the appearance of a mysterious flying saucer from Mars. This lone spacecraft turns out to be the vanguard of an impending Martian invasion, and our characters spend the rest of the film trying to stop this. Another unique aspect of the film's storytelling is that the plot unravels from the perspective of a child, which adds a layer of depth to the rapidly approaching crisis. Invaders from Mars was the first science fiction film to be shot and released in color. The movie uses drastic angles and surreal visuals to transport the audience to its unfamiliar world. Owing to its groundbreaking visuals and a mixture of horror and sci-fi, the film opened to mostly positive views, with audiences raving about its unique style.
Back onto your camera one, pan up as high as you can. Now.
Number 9. The Quatermass Experiment, 1955. This terrifying next entry comes from the UK and is called The Quatermass Experiment, produced in 1955 by Hammer Film Production. It stars Brian Dolovey as Professor Bernard Quatermass. A spacecraft designed by Professor Quatermass crash lands on a strange planet. Soon after, its lone survivor starts mutating into a horrifying alien organism that will take over the Earth if given the chance to spawn. Shot in black and white, the film utilized the cinema verite style, with handheld flourished and perspective shots that thoroughly terrified the audiences. The entire production was determined to bring a sense of realism to the horrid visuals being depicted, and the same sensibility was applied when designing makeup and costume. The film was received enthusiastically upon its release, with director Val Guest garnering praise for his evocative storytelling. Some critics hailed the film as a treat that amalgamates factual styles and horror techniques, making it one of the best alien possession films seen by that point. Due to its success, Professor Quatermass soon returned to our screens in Quatermass 2 and Quatermass in the Pit. Number 10. The Island Earth, 1955. This last gem was directed by the duo of Joseph M. Newman and Jack Arnold, and was produced independently by William Allen. The Island Earth depicts the adventures of Dr. Cal Meacham. After the electronics engineer accidentally receives an advanced machine instead of his usual condensers, Meacham proceeds to build a communication apparatus. Soon, the doctor is approached by a man who proclaims that Meacham has passed the test and has been selected for their top-secret crew. However, when Meacham reaches the scientist's facility, it becomes clear that there's something wrong. The film utilizes vividly colored imagery to draw in its audience, and ends up building an otherworldly atmosphere. The audience also appreciated the genuine inventiveness of the effects and miniature sets, which led to a largely positive reception at the box office. The central character, Dr. Meacham, is portrayed by Jeff Morrow. Marvelous verdict. This list makes it evident that the 1950s were indeed a very eventful year for sci-fi cinema. It was in this decade that we finally saw cinema's capacity to depict strange, unreal world, which captivated audiences. But what do you think? Is there another gem from the 50s that we overlooked? Please let us know in the comments below. Well then, see you next time, marvelous viewers. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.